the New York Giants 35, the Washington Redskins 33. We'll be back at Yankee.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video, and welcome to the Gridiron. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone out there. Anybody subscribed to my channel, anybody who's watching my videos, maybe give my video a thumbs up, or maybe left a comment or anything like that. I greatly appreciate it. I'm just trying to get my channel up and running, and anything you can do for me, I greatly appreciate. So thank you so much. Now, it's 1928, the 9th season in the history of the NFL. It's the 4th season of the New York Football Giants. Now, gotta make sure you remember, if you type into Google just New York Giants 1928, what you're probably gonna come up with is the New York Giants baseball team, because back in the 20s, baseball, boxing, and college football were supreme. The NFL was not. So if you need to come up with stats or whatever for the New York Football Giants from 1928, for whatever reason, you might want to type in the New York Football Giants, 1928. Now, 1927, the Giants were 11-1-1, and they won the championship. They were far from that in 1928. 1928, they were 4-7-2. They started off pretty good. They started off 2-0. And actually, after 8 games, they were 4-2-2, and they still had a chance at winning the championship. Unfortunately, they lost their last 5 games, and they wound up 4-7-2. 1927, the Giants scored 197 points. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but for back in the 20s, that was very good. 1928, they went from 197 points, and in 1928, they scored only 79 points. 1927, their defense was phenomenal. They only gave up 20 points in 13 games. They gave up 1.5 points per game. They only gave up 3 touchdowns all year in 1927. Unfortunately, in 1928, they gave up 136 points. So it was like night and day. How they were. Actually, their first 3 seasons, they were all winning seasons. They won at least 8 games every year. So they really took a nosedive in 1927. Yeah, they only scored 79 points. They got shut out 6 times. And out of a 10-team league, they finished in 6th place. Now, their first year in existence, the teams were coming and going left and right. In 1925, the Giants' first year in existence, there were 20 teams. 1926, there was 22 teams. 1927, the league started cutting down and got rid of a bunch of teams that were like kind of financially strapped and all. So the team went from 22 teams in 1926 down to 12 teams in 1927. And then in 1928, there was only 10 teams. The 10 teams included the Providence Steamroller, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, the Detroit Wolverines, more on them in a minute, the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, the New York Giants, the New York Yankees, the Pottsville Maroons, the Chicago Cardinals, and the Dayton Triangles. Now, the Detroit Wolverines and the New York Yankees, this would be the last year in existence for both these teams. The Detroit Wolverines, they were actually they wound up in 3rd place. They wound up being a very good team this year. They were the highest scoring team. So at the end of the season, the Giants owner Tim Mara, he went out and he bought the Detroit Wolverines franchise, and he merged 2 clubs under the Giants name. So the following year, right, they had better players. They had a lot better players, and they got a lot better results than 4-7-2. But basically, one of the biggest reasons that he went out and bought the Detroit Wolverines was for a player called Benny Friedman. Phenomenal. He was good. He played defensive back, but his assets were running back. He could throw the ball. He could kick. He was phenomenal. He was like, I don't know what you want. Yeah, and, I'm not going to call him Tom Brady because he's a goat. But I mean, Benny Friedman was the quarterback back then. He was something special. Now he also owns an NFL record, and hasn't been broken since 1928. 1928, he led the league in touchdown passes and rushing touchdowns. Nobody in the history of the NFL can ever say that except for Benny Friedman. So that's pretty impressive. He's held that record for almost 100 years now. But I said, one of the main reasons why Tim Mara bought the Detroit Wolverines was for that one particular player. And he played the next 3 years with the Giants, and he really helped the Giants, helped them out a lot. Now, the 1928 season, okay, it was the Providence Steamroller. They wound up winning. They had a record of 8-1-2. Okay, it was the same thing as it was all the other years. The teams, they had to go out and they had to figure out a way of signing their games. There was no 16-game schedule. It was just kind of guys that were playing different days of the week, like in Philadelphia, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets couldn't play on Sundays. They had to play all their home games on Saturdays. They played home and home games, back-to-back games. So the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets that season wound up playing 16 games. The Giants played 13 games. The Chicago Cardinals only played 6 games. The Dayton Triangles only played 7 games. So there was a lot of, a couple teams played only 10 games. So there was a huge disparity in the amount of games that wound up getting played. But for that year, the top 3 teams, was the Providence Steamroller. They wound up 8-1-2. Okay, the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets wound up 11-3-2, and the Detroit Wolverines wound up 7-2-1. Now for Detroit, they won their first 3 games. They won their last 4 games. Unfortunately, there was 3 games in the middle that they lost 2 and they tied 1. They lost to Providence Steamroller. They lost to the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets, and they tied the Giants. So those 3 games in the middle kind of did them in. But other than that, they had a phenomenal season. What it wound up coming down to was in November 17th and November 18th, there were 2 games that played back to back. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets and the Providence Steamroller. On November 17th, Saturday, Providence went and played in Frankfurt, and the game wound up being tied 6-6. After that game, they had to hop on a train, take the train up to New England and play in Providence the very next day on Sunday, November 18th. Now, the game wound up being where Providence wound up winning that game 6-0. If Frankfurt had won either one of those games, they would only had 2 losses, and the Providence Steamroller would have had 2 losses. But Frankfurt would have won the overall championship because Frankfurt played more games. They would have had more wins. Their winning percentage would have been better than the Providence Steamroller, because the Providence Steamroller only played 11 games. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets played 16 games, but it was not to be. The Frankfurt Yellow Jackets tied one of the games and they lost another one. So that's why at the end of the season they had 3 losses. The Providence Steamroller only had 1 loss. And the Providence Steamroller wound up winning the NFL championship for the 1928 season with a record of 8-1-2. Now just to go to show you kind of like how it's just amazing how like some of the stadiums are and everything. What Providence played in, they played in it was called the Cycledrome. Okay, it was a stadium specifically built for bicycle races. Now, you ever see like a bicycle races? They had, along the straightaways. Well, it's kind of like a NASCAR. Along the straightaways, things are kind of flat. But when you get into the turn, you get a big turn. The way it is with bicycle races as well. So there was the cyclodrome could fit 10,000 people in it. And so the stands were around the stadium, and there was a wooden track where the bicyclists rode their bicycles, and it was the wooden track, and around the end zone it would bend, it would have an angle to it and all, and but it was so tight, right, that basically the sidelines and even some of the fans were sitting on the wooden track. So basically, if a lot of times when guys got tackled out of bounds, they would wind up either in the stands, or they would wind up on the sideline taking out other ball players, because it was so tight, there wasn't much room. Also, because the way the track was, one of the end zones was only 5 yards deep. So one end zone was 10 yards deep, the other one was only 5 yards deep. Now, back in 1928, the goalposts were supposed to be on the end lines, but because of the shortness of the field, they brought the goalposts in and they put them on the goal lines. And also, there was only one dressing room in the whole stadium. So the home team, got to dress in the dressing room, but it wasn't much of a dressing room, because it was basically the size to accommodate some bicyclists, not a whole football team. Plus, there was only 2 showers. So when the guys went in after the game was over and had a shower, they had to take turns. It wasn't like, I don't know how many shower heads they'd have nowadays in a locker room, but back then it was just 2 showers. So if there was, say, 16 guys on a team, you could get 2 guys at a time. So it would take them, I don't know how long they wanted to take in showers. The other team would have to dress in their hotel room, come over, play the game, get back on the bus, go back to the hotel room smelling all dirty, get into the hotel, and take a shower there. And then also the price of the tickets to see a game, the Cyclodrome, in 1928. The prices were $2, $1.50, and $1. They're not that much anymore. They're not that cheap anymore. I wish they were. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there, and go Giants! Woo!